Hello everyone, my name is Liezel Mohillo from Silliman University, Dumaguete City, Philippines, together with my co-researcher Angie Jalandoon and Dr. Dave Marcial. Now we will be presenting our study titled Knowledge, Attitude, and Practices Towards Open Educational Resources in Higher Education Institutions in the Philippines. OER is already well known and widely used around the world. However, the Philippines lacks information and implementation of OERs, although it is stated in the CMO in 2020. Some OERs in the Philippines are not as much as developed as in other countries. According to existing literatures, OERs are essential to users in pursuing their education, especially now that flexible learning has been implemented. Hence, this investigation assesses academic librarians' knowledge, attitudes, and practices about OER, most especially that OERs are exceptionally useful in this pandemic where face-to-face learning is not permitted. Learning and teaching in digital age face challenges, especially in time of pandemic. Some countries have been challenged in using technology and technological creation. In developing countries, this has been experienced, but technological age also given both educators and learners opportunity to freely use, modify, edit, and retain educational resources. But how is it when it comes to librarians? In global perspectives, open educational resources are not new to librarians, nor is flexible learning. Globally, it has produced revenue among higher education institutions. With the development of information and communication technologies or ICT, technological progress in the educational field create academic activities and new learning spaces, which includes pedagogical activities that contributes to the transformation of the classroom, that offers inspiration, independence, inclusion, and mentality toward educational content. UNESCO defined open educational resources as teaching, learning, and research materials in any medium, in digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or are released under an intellectual property license that permits no cost of access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others. In Asia, the education sector also faces difficulties and challenges, suffering from a lack of, if not poorly maintained infrastructure, as well as a scarcity of available materials, which includes libraries. However, they still see the significance of OERs for educators and students, including the Philippines, which has a diverse range of development and implementation cases among Asian countries. However, most of the HEIs in the Philippines have not fully implemented open educational resources. Furthermore, librarians are not fully aware of OERs due to a lack of exposure or familiarity with handling and managing open educational resources, and some OERs in the Philippines are not developed as compared to other countries. The objective of these studies is to determine the profile of academic librarians, HCI's library profiles, library resources, and the level of CAP towards OER, and it is specifically aims to find out if there is a significant relationship between KAP-OER and the demographic profile of the respondents as well as the school profiles or the library profiles, and if there is a significant difference between KAP-OER and sex, higher educational attainment, and years of service of the respondents. This study utilizes the model of 4 Rs of openness. As you can see in the slides, the 4 Rs of openness are the reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. According to the following authors, Helton, Wiley, Stein, Johnson, and Wisulik, Lasley, and Langley in separate papers in 2010 and 2018. The 4 Rs of openness offers learners freedom to use all or part of the unaltered verbatim work, adapt, modify, translate, or change the form of the work in combining OER with other OER to produce new materials, according to David Wiley in 2014. The second model here is the model of the combination of the CAP and the 4 Rs of openness. This framework was used to assist the KAP-OER of the academic librarians in higher education institutions in the Philippines. It primarily assesses the baseline levels of awareness about OER and practices before designing and implementing interventional programs in the population of interest. These 4 Rs of openness serve as the basis for measuring the academic librarians towards open educational resources. For the methods of this study, we utilize descriptive correlative analysis on CAP using self-constructed survey questions that are based on the concept of 4 Rs of openness of OER. And the instrument was tested and validated through a reliability and validity survey, which are employed through Google Forms to 57 HEIs in the Philippines that offers BLIS program. The data was analyzed using Person R, Cronbach alpha, measures of central tendency, such as mean and percentage, as well as frequency. And we also use chi-square, Spearman Raw, and one-way ANOVA using Microsoft Excel and SPSS software. Person correlation coefficient and Cronbach's alpha were used to analyze the test retest and internal consistency of the instrument for the CAP of OER. So for the result of this study, it will be discussed by my co-researcher Angie Jalandoon.
For the demographic profile, the total number of HEIs according to three biggest islands in the Philippines. 52.63% came from Luzon, 26.32% from Mindanao, and 21.05% from the Visayas. Among the respondents, 87.72% of the respondents were females and 12.28% were males. For the educational attainment, 64.91% have a master's degree in LIS, 15.79% have a doctorate degree in LIS or relevance program, 14.04% have a bachelor's degree, 5.26% have a postdoctorate. 18.93 is the average respondent's years of service. Then the library's demographic profile, 70.18% were from private colleges or universities. Then 29.82% were from public colleges or universities. For the results of knowledge, attitudes, and practices towards OER, based on the elements of OER including the general aspects. As you can see on the table, the means of all means is 5.39. Describe as this is something I rarely do at our school. Among all the elements, reuse has the means of 5.75. Describe as this is something I rarely do at our school. Has the highest means, while the lowest means is 5.31, which are on the elements of revise and redistribution. This is still described as this is something I rarely do at our school. In terms of relationship between KAP-OER and sex in educational attainment, as you can see on the table, the remarks is not significant because the p-values of these two variables are higher than the level of significance utilized in this study, which is 0.05. Similarly, on the test of relationship between KAP-OER and years of service, as shown on the table, the remarks is not significant because the p-value is higher than the level of significance utilized in this study, which is 0.05. For the test of relationship between KAP-OER and region and type school, with the p-value of 0.6 and 0.077, still not significant. For the test of relationship between KAP-OER and school profiles in terms of library resources, there are three variables that are remarked significant because their p-value are within the level of significance, and these are total number of print resources, total number of non-print resources, and total OER resources. However, in terms of total number of databases subscribed, with the p-value of 0.294 is not significantly related to KAP-OER. For the test of differences between KAP-OER and librarian's profile, which are sex, highest educational attainment, and years of service. Remark not significant, since their p-values are 0.572, 0.319, and 0.534, higher than the level of significance, which is 0.05, as shown on the table. Finding drones in the results showed that the gap of the academic librarians towards open educational resources regarding the four concepts of openness is moderate. Thus, academic librarians performed and integrated such identified KAP-OER and the respective schools and moderately demonstrated their knowledge and attitude. In the studies, first research question on the significant test between the librarian's profile and the KAP-OER. The result reveals that no significant relationship implies that the sex, highest educational attainments, and the years of service were not a factor for the KAP-OER. Likewise, no meaningful relationship between school profile and the KAP-OER in terms of region and the type of school, and on one item in terms of library resources. In contrast, there was a significant relationship between the library resources and the KAP-OER, such as the total number of print and non-print resources and OER. The result also addressed the second research objective. The result revealed no significant differences between the KAP-OER and the sex, higher educational attainment, and the years of service of the librarians. The study concluded that the Philippine academic librarians are confronted with the challenge of knowledge, attitudes, and practice in utilizing the OER, and thus need to have necessary interventions in improving their CAP. Looking at the four elements of openness, revise, reuse, remix, and redistribute. According to Kalilong in 2021, it is imperative to keep academic librarians' knowledge of information resources up to date, particularly OER through training or capacity building. The academic librarians' demographic profiles, to some extent, have a relationship with their KAP-OER. Still, the degree of association is not significant. Therefore, the academic librarian's demographic profile cannot be considered a crucial factor for their CAP towards OER. In the same manner, the academic librarian's school profile, to some extent, may also have a relationship with their CAP OER, but the degree of the association is not significant. Therefore, the academic librarian's school profile cannot be considered as essential variable for their CAP towards OER. Thus, the librarian's demographic and school profiles have nothing to do with their CAP towards OER. For further studies, revisiting the KAP-OER within 3 to 5 years intervals and see how the CAP of the Philippine Academic Librarian differs from previous studies in the field. Since the existing literature stated that the tapping academic librarians' perceptions provides a quick view of librarians' tolerance for risk, acceptance of change, and willingness to develop new partnership for student success. Here are some references that we utilize. Thank you so much for listening.